Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar presented by Quimbee Bar Review. During today's session, we'll be answering the question we hear often here at Quimbee, which is, what law school courses will prepare me for the bar exam? We'll get started here in just a moment to allow everyone time to join us. Today's webinar is going to start with a presentation from Lori Eller, Bar Review Director here at Quimbee, and at the end, we'll dedicate some time to answering your questions live. So please be sure to put your questions as you have them in the Q&A feature below, and either one of our awesome team directors in the background, Shannon or Jessica, will answer those directly, or we'll address it during the live Q&A. And if we don't get to your question, don't worry, we'll provide you with our contact information for you to reach out to us after the webinar. With that, I'm going to hand things over to Lori, who is going to get our presentation started today. Take it away, Lori.
Thanks, Emily. Hi, everyone. My name is Lori, and I am one of Quimbee's Bar Review directors. So let's go ahead and get started. So I became a Bar Review director for Quimbee Bar Review because I've loved using Quimbee since I was a 1L in law school, and I've just really enjoyed working here and helping students through the bar exam. So just quickly, a little bit about myself. I live in Boston, Massachusetts. I came here for law school. I went to BU Law, and I'm originally from Mountain City, Tennessee. In law school, my favorite class was contracts and a contract drafting course that I took as a 3L. And I'm sure many of you will agree, my least favorite was civil procedure. I took the Massachusetts bar exam, which is the uniform bar exam. So I took that bar exam back in 2020 and practiced for a bit before coming here and working for Quimbee. And what I thought was the most difficult part of the bar exam when I took it was the MEE, which is the essay portion. So here's a quick agenda for our webinar today. So first, we're going to have an introduction, tell you a little bit about Quimbee as a company. Then we're going to talk about the bar exam itself. We're going to talk about what it is, and we're going to talk about the UBE, California, and the Florida bar exams. We, of course, are also going to tell you how to prepare in law school for the bar exam. We're going to cover the MBE, the MEE, and the MPT, and then we'll also talk a little bit about the NextGen bar exam and what to expect for that bar exam, as it's going to result in quite a few changes. And then finally here, we'll be giving a quick intro to Quimbee Bar Review. And then, as Emily mentioned, we'll have time at the end for a live Q&A. So feel free to submit questions in the chat, and we'll have that towards the end of the presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. So who is Quimbee? So we are an all-in-one platform for lifelong legal learning. So we help support you from your very first day of law school until your last day of practice once you have passed the exam. So we have 4 different products. We'll start out with the study aids to help you prepare for class and your exams in law school. Next, we'll help you take the MPRE with our free MPRE review, which you can sign up for right on our website. Then we'll prepare you for the bar exam with our bar review. And then finally, after you pass the exam and you're a licensed attorney, we do have a CLE subscription, so you can get the credits you need to keep your license active. First, let's take a quick look at what the bar exam covers. We're going to put a poll up and see how many of you are taking each of these bar exams. Don't worry, we'll have time for you to answer that as we walk through these next few slides. First, I'll cover the UBE, which is the bar exam that I took. It stands for the Uniform Bar Exam. If you don't know what that is, I've included a map here to show all the states that have adopted the UBE. Those are all of those orange states. The UBE is comprised of 3 different sections: the multi-state bar exam, or the MBE, the multi-state essay exam, or the MEE, and finally the multi-state performance test, or the MPT. You can see the weightings here, with the MBE being 50% of your total score, the essay is 30%, and then the performance test is the remaining 20%. So let's chat a little bit more about the UBE. The MBE section is composed of 200 multiple choice questions covering 7 subjects. And for those 7, think back to your very first year of law school, subjects like torts, contracts, I'm sure everyone else's favorite, Civ Pro. And then you have the ME-E, which contains 6 essays that you'll need to complete in 30 minutes each. And the ME-E can test any of those MBE subjects, as well as 5 additional subjects. The MPT is a bit different. It is a closed universe writing task, so it won't test knowledge of any specific subjects. Now let's chat and move on to a state-specific exam, the California bar exam. So for this exam, the MBE is included and it accounts for 50% of your total score. And then you'll have California essays that are 36% and the performance test portion, which is 14%. So let's talk a little bit more in depth about that exam. The California exam includes the MBE, but the other components are a little different. The essay component contains 5 essays that you'll need to complete in 60 minutes each. California essays cover the MBE topics and additional subjects like community property and professional responsibility. And there's also a performance test, but unlike the MPT, there's just one writing assignment for that. Now, another state exam is the Florida bar exam. As you can see, for this bar exam, the MBE accounts for 50% of your score. Then you have 3 essays that are 25%, and Florida multiple choice questions that compose that last 25%. So for Florida, as you can see here, the MBE is still part of your exam, but you'll also face an additional multiple choice question component. And those 100 multiple choice questions test various aspects of Florida law. The essay component contains 3 essays. You'll be allotted 60 minutes for each question, and these essays cover not only the MBE subjects, but also other topics like family law and professional responsibility. And as you can see, the Florida exam does not contain a performance test. So, how can you prepare for the bar exam while you're still in law school? Let's begin with preparing for the MBE. Even if your state doesn't use the MBE, nearly all states administer the MBE as part of their bar exams, as you saw with California and Florida as examples. It's a great idea to take courses for each of the MBE tested subjects. There are 7 of these subjects covered on the MBE, and there's no escaping these subjects. You will have questions on each of these 7. Plus, these big 7 are double tested on the UBE, so they're both multiple choice questions and essays, so it's worthwhile to ensure that you cover them during law school. And many of these will be required courses probably in your first or second year. It can be a great use of your time and energy to dig into those harder MBE tested topics. It'll help you in law school and it'll help you prepare for the bar exam. So bar takers typically find Civ Pro to be more challenging. It covers a number of topics and some tricky rules like personal jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction, preclusion, and joinder rules. Plus, you'll have to work through fact patterns that deal with the timing of motions and pleadings, and that can be tricky. Bar takers also find con law to be challenging. The material is pretty complex, and you'll need to master tough concepts like due process, equal protection, takings, and First Amendment freedoms. Some questions will require you to analyze the constitutionality of a statute, so you'll also need to know each of Congress's enumerated powers in depth. Property is also one that is challenging. The MBE covers some real estate topics in depth that your 1L property course probably didn't cover, like mortgages and security devices. And the property questions feature long fact patterns and are known to test tricky nuances, like the difference between real covenants and equitable servitudes. Even though the MBE is challenging, don't be intimidated. You can set yourself up for success if you work hard in your law school courses. Next, note that one law school course may not cover all of what's tested for the MBE. For example, for con law, some schools split con law coverage into con law 1 and 2, one covering federalism and one covering individual rights like freedom of speech, freedom of religion. To be well prepared for con law on the MBE, you should take both of those. For contracts, take the basic contracts class, plus any advanced contracts or sales courses. For crim law and crim pro, take the basic criminal law course, plus constitutional criminal law procedure. For property, take the basic property course and additional courses covering real estate transactions and mortgages, since like we said earlier, those typically aren't covered in your 1L property class. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit and do a sample MBE-style question. So here is the question. I'm going to give you all a couple minutes to go ahead, read through this question, and put in the poll that's going to pop up what you think the right answer is for this question. So I'll give you a couple minutes and go ahead and read this and select which one you think is correct. Okay, let's go ahead and move to the right answer. It looks like a lot of you looking at the Q&A here have indeed picked the correct answer, so kudos to all of you. But B here is the correct answer. So in this question, because the defendant lacked intent to kill or cause serious bodily injury and did not act with extreme indifference to human life, he is not guilty of murder. For the other answer options, answer option A was incorrect because a defendant's affection for the victim does not preclude a murder conviction. Option C was incorrect because the defendant did not act with a depraved heart. And option D was also incorrect because the defendant did not act with premeditation to kill. So notice here how these MBE-style questions test your ability to apply legal rules and the reasoning to a given facts. So you don't only have to know the legal rule itself and be able to recall that. To select the answer option that is correct, you also have to then conduct legal analysis. Now, back to those MBE subjects. You should master the highly tested topics within each of these MBE Big 7. The MBE draws questions equally from each of the 7 subjects. So the exam will contain the same number of torts questions as evidence questions. But within each of those subjects, certain topics will be more frequently tested. So it does pay to master those highly tested topics. For example, in your civil procedure course, pay special attention to jurisdiction and venue. Both of those are highly tested. For con law, focus on individual rights. In property, focus on ownership of property. So that includes present estates and future interests, co-tenancy, and landlord-tenant law. And for torts, be sure you master negligence. If you have negligence down, you'll definitely be able to pick up some extra points because it comes up often on the MBE. Now let's talk about preparing for the essay portion of the bar exam. We'll start with the multi-state essay exam, or the MEE, which again is part of that uniform bar exam. And then we'll cover some state-specific bar essays in just a minute. So the essays on the MEE are drawn from the Big 7 MBE subjects, plus 5 additional subjects. So those are business associations, family law, wills, trusts, and estates, conflict of laws, and secured transactions. If you're thinking, I can't possibly cover everything, that's okay. The bar exam should not be the only consideration when you're picking your law school courses. Your career goals and your academic interests are also important and do count to take into consideration. But if you are going to skip a bar tested topic, please do so thoughtfully. Generally, it's easier to prepare for the bar exam if you've taken a course in the subject. Check out your course descriptions and think about whether you can successfully teach yourself that subject. When you make course decisions, you can also consider what subjects are highly tested for the MEE. So the MEE contains 6 essay questions, and the examiners will pick from those 12 subjects that are tested. So not every subject is going to be tested on your bar exam. Traditionally, 3 subjects have appeared the most often. Those are business associations, wills, trusts, and estates, and CivPro. Notice which subjects aren't tested as frequently as well. So for many students, skipping conflicts does make sense. It's not as heavily tested as the other subjects, and it's only tested on the essay portion of the exam. And it will only appear alongside another subject. So the examiners won't devote a full essay question just to conflicts alone. Now, a special note, if you are taking the bar exam in July 2026 or later, the examiners are dropping 4 subjects from the MEE. So as you can see here, those will be family law, trust and estates, conflict of laws, and secure transactions. So those will not be tested on the MEE. So make sure you figure those changes into your course plan. If you're taking a state-specific exam, consider taking courses in the tested subjects. It might take some research to figure out what subjects are tested for those state-specific ones, but knowing what subjects you'll face will help you a lot in the long run. So no one likes surprises with bar review. And with this map here, the ones in light gray are the states that have state-specific exams. So again, those orange ones being ones that administer the uniform bar exam. You can use the state bar examiner's website to see what's tested for your state that you're planning to practice in. You can access your jurisdiction site through the National Conference of Bar Examiners page listed right here on this slide. So you can head there, go to your state, and then go to your bar examiner's page straight from there. If you're curious what might be tested on a state-specific exam, we're going to quickly run through subjects tested for 2 other jurisdictions, California and Florida. So for California, the essays cover the MBE Big 7, and then they also cover business associations, community property, professional responsibility, remedies, and wills and trusts. For Florida, the Florida essays cover most of the MBE Big 7 except CivPro and evidence. And then they also cover Florida constitutional law, professional responsibility, family law, and professionalism. Now, taking bar tested subjects as courses in law school isn't your only option to prepare for the bar exam while still in school. So 4-credit bar courses are a really good way to squeeze bar prep in before you even graduate if they're offered at your school. So these courses will offer you academic credit, and then they also help demystify the bar exam itself. So if you're looking for these at your school, look for courses titled something like Bar Exam Bootcamp, Advanced Bar Studies, or Strategies for the Bar Exam. But note, your school might have a 4-credit bar course with a less obvious title, like Applied Legal Reasoning, Multi-State Review, or Uniform Law Survey. So those may also cover bar exam subjects and skills. And if you're not sure if your school offers one of these or not, you can check in with your academic advisor or the Academic Success Office, and they should be able to help you identify if your school has one of these options. In the typical course, you'll study a subset of bar tested topics, and you'll practice with questions from real past bar exams. So previewing the bar prep experience can really help you figure out what study strategies work best for you individually. So understanding how you'll learn, memorize, and apply the law covered on the bar exam before that time-pressured crush of bar prep starts is definitely a huge advantage. Plus, you'll also receive the instructor's feedback on your practice essays and your performance tests, and that personalized attention on your writing is really invaluable. So we've covered preparing for the multiple choice and the essay components of the exam, but many students will also face a performance test as part of their bar exam. So if you're taking the UBE, you'll take the multi-state performance test. And some state-specific exams also contain performance tests. California is one example. The performance test is a practical lawyering exam composed of two 90-minute questions. You'll receive an exam booklet assigning a specific task and then providing some fictional evidence and some legal authorities. So you'll then read all of that and use that information to draft a practice-oriented document. The exam booklet contains all the relevant law that you need, so you will not be expected to learn specific subjects beforehand. So here we're going to have another poll to ask you, what is the most frequently tested document type on the multi-state performance test? So is it a letter, an objective memo, a bench memo, or a persuasive argument / brief? So I'll give you guys a couple minutes. Think about that, vote which one you think is the most frequently tested document type that you'll be asked to draft for the performance test portion of your bar exam. And then we'll go ahead and chat a little bit more about those common task types. Okay, thanks everyone for going ahead and answering that. So what is the most common task type? The most common was the objective memorandum. So you'll draft a document predicting the outcome of a legal issue. The second most common was that persuasive argument or brief. And then the third most common is a letter. So for an example of what a letter could be, you might be asked to write a demand letter, which demands that a recipient take or refrain from some particular action. So how can you prepare for the performance test during law school? A 1L legal writing course will teach you how to work with factual information and legal sources like those you'll see in the file and library for a performance test. And they'll teach you to write commonly tested task types like objective memos and persuasive briefs. Upper level writing electives will give you additional practice working with factual materials, synthesizing rules from multiple sources, and expressing legal analysis. Most schools offer a diverse set of options for those upper level writing electives. Some examples are advanced appellate advocacy, judicial writing, or transactional drafting courses. So you can pick according to your own interests, because all of these upper level writing courses will get you practicing expressing legal analysis, which is the critical part for bar prep. And finally, 4-credit bar courses. So as we mentioned, a 4-credit bar course will give you opportunities to try out practice questions from past exams, and many of those courses will incorporate practice with performance tests. Okay, finally, let's talk about NextGen. So as you might have heard, the National Conference of Bar Examiners is developing a new version of the bar exam set to debut in July 2026. So unfortunately, at this point, we don't yet know which states will choose to administer the NextGen exam. States can pick to stay with the UBE for a few administrations after NextGen is introduced, because the examiners will be supporting both versions of the exam. And to date, no state has publicly announced that it is adopting the NextGen exam. So if you do need to end up needing to prepare for the NextGen exam, what can you do during law school? You can focus on lawyering skills. The NextGen exam will integrate assessment of substantive knowledge and skills, and many questions will be based on a case file of materials, where the examiners will provide a client situation and applicable legal authorities. And you'll need to use issue spotting and analysis skills, but also investigative, legal research, and client counseling skills. And for many law students, this is great news, because any practice you get during law school with hands-on lawyering will then translate into bar preparation. So consider clinical or simulation courses and field placements where you work in a legal office for credit with your school. Law students will also appreciate the more limited scope of law that's going to be tested on NextGen. So NextGen drops conflict of laws, family law, secured transactions, and wills, trusts, and estates. It keeps all 7 MBE subjects, and it keeps business organizations. Also, note NextGen is going to cover some aspects of the rules of professional responsibility. So the exam will test a subset of rules that arise naturally in a client relationship. And again, at this point, there is limited information available about the NextGen exam, and we don't yet know which jurisdictions will administer it. So if you're planning on taking the bar exam in July 2026 or a later administration, best thing to do is to stay tuned for updates about NextGen. So what's next? If you haven't made the decision already, decide where you want to practice law. You'll need to research the licensing requirements for whatever state you plan to practice in. And again, the state bar website is a good place to start that research. Make sure you understand the requirements and the deadlines, and dedicate time to filling out the application because it can be a lengthier process than you might think. Consider taking bar tested subjects in your final year of law school, and check out whether your school offers any of those special bar prep elective courses that we talked about. Finally, select a bar prep provider. Research the different courses and really take the time to consider how you learn best and whether a course matches your individual needs and learning style. At Quimbee, we do offer a bar review course to prepare you for your bar exam. We support all UBE jurisdictions, plus California and Florida. So just quickly, some of the features of our bar review course include using proven learning science to develop all of our materials. So learning theory is really at the core of our mission at Quimbee, which is why we design all of our materials to incorporate findings from over 100 years of educational psychology research. And one way we incorporate learning science is through our illustrated video lessons in our signature MBE-Style. These are 5 to 7 minute bar-specific videos that provide strategy tips and example-driven lessons that help you pass the exam on your very first try. We also take a practice-based approach to bar prep with plenty of practice questions from past bar exams that are incorporated through full-length diagnostic exams and a simulated MBE to allow you to practice your exam performance, and through practice essays and a performance test that you'll get feedback on from our licensed attorney graders to improve your writing performance over time. If you do want to check out Quimbee Bar Review, you can schedule a demo of our course by scanning this QR code up on the screen. So this will take you to a calendar where you can select a time for either myself or one of my fellow bar review directors to log on to our course and walk you through our entire program. That way you can see it for yourself to decide if it's a good fit for your individual learning style. And also you'll have the opportunity to ask us any questions that you might have about our program. And if you're just ready to go ahead and enroll, you can enroll right on our website at quimbee.com/bar review. And then, of course, if you do have any questions, but you don't have the time for a call, you're more than welcome to email us at barprep@quimbee.com, and we will answer any questions that you have about our bar review program. So that is our presentation for this webinar. Now we're going to go ahead and switch over to the Q&A portion of the webinar. So back to you, Emily.
Yes, thank you, Lori. As we said, we're going to answer some of your questions here live. If you have one, please put it in the Q&A feature. Shannon or Jessica may respond to you directly or will respond live. If we're not able to get to your question, don't worry. We'll put our contact information up again here at the end if you would like to reach out to us after the webinar. I'm going to start with some of the questions that were submitted when registering. So let me pull up that first question. First question I have, Lori, is what additional tips do you have for first-generation students preparing for the bar exam? Anything in particular for that audience?
Yeah, great question. I actually was a first-gen student myself and first-gen college student, so I totally understand it's a different approach to law school. You don't always have the level of background that some other students have. So some advice specifically for preparing for the bar exam would just really be to trust the process. Trust what you know about your own learning style. So honestly, this might be one area where it's really not as much of a disadvantage to be a first gen, because any bar prep advice that parents or grandparents might give you might be a little bit outdated. So it's important to find a bar course that works for your learning style, show up every day and continue to use those study habits that you found helpful in law school. And trust that you can do this. So just, put in that time and effort, really go through the program and do what your learning style, what works for you in law school. And then also one thing too would be to make sure that you're communicating boundaries to friends or family members if you need to, because they might not understand how big of a commitment bar prep is and how all-consuming the nature of this exam can be. So making sure that you're communicating with your loved ones about that would also be very helpful as you're studying.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, next question. Are there some classes that you would deem safe not to take during law school that could be adequately covered by a bar prep course?
Yeah, so in general, bar prep courses do provide comprehensive coverage for all of the subjects that are tested on the exam. So you will learn what you need in a bar prep course. But if we were to pick, which ones you'd be safer skipping during school, we would probably say the essay subjects. They tend to involve less material than the MBE subjects, and they're easier to learn in a shorter period of time. And conflicts of laws, as we talked a little bit earlier in the presentation, specifically is one of those shorter essay subjects to cover. And since it's not an essay question on its own, it's always paired with another subject. That could be one you could skip taking a class on in law school. But if you do find yourself with extra time in the schedule, taking those essay subjects during law school definitely won't hurt. Just keep in mind, where you're planning on taking the bar exam and what subjects are covered for your exam.
All right, thanks, Lori. Kind of along the same lines of timing and planning out, for bar prep timeline / how to best prep in your spare time, how much time do you think someone needs to prepare for the bar exam, or how soon can one get started? Is there too soon to get started?
Yeah, that's a great question. So really your timeline is going to depend on your personal circumstances. So if you're if you're planning on taking time off after you graduate, so meaning like you won't be working or having any other significant responsibilities during that time, you'll need about 10 weeks to study for the exam. That's how long our full-time course is, and most other companies have a similar full-time schedule. So the full-time schedule does involve an average of 8 to 10 hours of studying per day, about 6 days a week. So it is a big time commitment. And if you won't be able to study full time because you'll be working, caring for family members, any other things going on, then it might be good to consider taking a part-time course. So for us, our part-time course spans 6 months, and it's a much reduced workload each day. So instead of 8 to 10 hours a day, it's an average of 3 to 4 hours each day. I believe we're the only major bar review course that offers a part-time schedule at the same price as the full-time. But it's definitely something to consider, how much time you'll have to dedicate to bar prep and what your individual circumstances are.
Awesome, thank you. And I'm seeing this one other kind of related question as far as timing goes. Can someone take the bar exam in the last semester of their JD? In other words, before they complete their JD? And then they noted specifically they're in California, if that makes a difference.
Gotcha. Yeah, so in most cases, you are required to complete your JD before you sit for the bar exam. You can check with your state bar association if there are any exceptions to that policy, because there are definitely states that allow it, but those states that allow it, there are some major restrictions, and it's not too many of the states. Most of them, you do have to complete the JD and then take the bar exam.
Great, thank you. We have someone asking about grade distribution for each subject. Can you expand on that topic?
Yeah, sure. So for the grade distribution, so the MBE part of the bar exam, which is worth 50% of your grade in the states that are using the MBE, it covers the 7 subjects that are tested equally. So again, those being civil procedure, criminal law and procedure, evidence, torts, contracts, property, and constitutional law. So it covers each of those equally. And then the written portion of your bar exam will also cover a number of essay subjects. And with, how many or which subjects will depend on what state you're taking, but it's worth up to about 25% of your grade. But with those, not all of the essay subjects will be tested because there's only so many essay questions on the exam. So for example, for UBE, there's 12 subjects and only 6 questions. So they're not all going to show up. So that grade distribution does depend, primarily on which of those essay subjects are selected for the essays. But with MBE, all 7 are equal.
Thank you. All right, we have someone in particular who is a little bit out of law school, I'm assuming. They're asking, how do you help an older test taker to ensure that they pass the bar exam?
That's a good question. Yeah, studying for the bar exam, as you're further and further out from school or, being used to studying, going to college and straight through law school can definitely be challenging. Not because you can't remember the information, but maybe just because you're not used to having those same study habits. So I think for students in that situation, it might be a good idea to look at doing a more extended period for bar review, maybe looking at a part-time schedule, because that's a really good way to get back into the practice of studying by handling smaller bits of studying at a time. So for example, our videos in our course do this pretty well because each of the videos is only 5 to 7 minutes long. So it's smaller chunks of concentration, smaller chunks of studying at once. But really, all of the bar review courses are comprehensive and will give you everything that you need to know or learn for the exam in a manageable way for any test taker.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, and then in particular, we talked about NextGen, and there definitely are some unknowns still with that. So what advice would you have for students who are still preparing for the bar in this time of uncertainty and maybe which one they'll be taking?
That's a good question. Yeah, so, regardless of when or where you're taking the exam, it's a pretty good chance that you'll be tested on at least those 7 MBE subjects. So that's a pretty good reason to, focus on mastering those 7 MBE subjects during law school. And I would try not to worry too much about the NextGen changes beyond that, but make sure that when you are going in, looking at the exam that you're planning on taking and, maybe shopping around for bar review courses, make sure you're asking questions about how they're preparing for NextGen in the event that you do experience a lot of those changes for your bar exam.
Great, thank you. Okay, a specific piece of advice someone is asking for. So they are taking the California bar exam, but they're from out of state. Would it be better to take remedies or evidence?
So in general, we typically recommend that students prioritize the law school subjects that are more heavily tested on the bar exam. So with remedies, it's only tested on the written portion of the California bar exam, and it's not even guaranteed to show up as one of those essay subjects, since as we discussed, they have multiple to pick from. But with evidence, though, that is guaranteed to come up on the multiple choice question for the bar exam, and then it also could show up as the one of the essays for the written portion. And I would say generally evidence is a bit more of a complex subject than remedies, and since it's fairly heavily tested, probably be a better idea to take evidence, I would say.
Great, thank you. Okay, I think we have time for maybe one more question. Let me see what we haven't responded to yet here. Let's see, let's go for this one. Another for a specific use case, but are there any special courses for LLMs?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, so for LLM specifically, like with bar prep courses and with our bar review, we do offer comprehensive, coverage, whether you're an LLM student or whether you're a JD student who's taken some of these courses before. For example, our videos are teaching the law in just its purest form to minimize risk of confusion. And when you pair that with our really thorough outlines, you'll have everything that you need to make sure that you're getting the background in each of those subjects that, you might not have had from taking those courses your 1L year if you weren't in a JD program. And then one of the other key differences I would say, for example, with our course is that you do have immediate access to the materials when you enroll. So you don't have to wait until the course actually begins. So that means you have a bit longer to work through those materials. So that can be really beneficial when you haven't had the opportunity to take all those classes, like I said, in law school in like your first or second year. So you can go ahead and start looking through those outlines early, give yourself a longer time to absorb the material. I think would be really beneficial. I see a lot of LLM students going for our part-time courses because they want to make sure they have more time to go ahead and go through that material, get the background they feel that they need for each of those classes they didn't take in class.
Awesome. Thanks, Lori. With that, we're going to wrap things up here. Thank you to everyone for your time today. If you have any further questions we did not get to, we'll put our contact information back up on the screen here. As we mentioned, our team is ready to answer any more of your questions on the bar exam through our email, barprep@quimbee.com. You can also click around quimbee.com to learn more, including booking that demo one-on-one with a bar director. They'll be able to answer your personalized question if maybe there was something you didn't want to ask publicly today. And they'll also be able to let you know about any promotional pricing available to you. We will be posting the recording of this webinar. I know a few of you are asking about that. It will be posted on the resources section of quimbee.com, and we'll be emailing it out to you by the end of this week. If you'd like to watch it back, take some extra notes, some screenshots, share it with a friend who's asking, it'll be available to you. Anyway, we hope you have a great rest of your day and best of luck in law school and preparing for the bar exam.